Okay. All right. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. It's a nice, balmy April day out there. We're here for council meeting number 22 in council chambers, April 4th at 6:30 p.m. We did meet briefly and closed, and as a consequence, we adopted the agenda at that time, but we did not read our land acknowledgement. And Councillor Sullivan, I understand that you would like to read the acknowledgement this evening.
Okay. Thank you. The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabeg. We honor the historic relationship of the Haudenosaunee and Huron-Wendat peoples to this land. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship with all Indigenous peoples, and we look forward to continuing this conversation and fostering the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan. So with that, I'll just look to disclosures of interest, colleagues, for any agenda item. This is in regards to perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from any item on the agenda. Seeing no disclosures, we'll move on. Certainly coming out of our closed session, we do have a motion in regards to the appointment of a member of the committee. Ms. Workman, do you want to handle that, or would you like me to formulate a motion?
I was planning on that afterwards at that point, but I have the resolution here. That council appoint Nadia Dicken-Thibault to the Environmental Action Advisory Committee.
Okay, good. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Barclay, Councillor Strachan. Any comments or questions, colleagues? Of course, we do have a number of vacancies on a variety of municipal advisory committees, and there is an open call for applications. So if someone didn't apply and wishes to, there is still an opportunity to join almost all of our municipal advisory committees, but one, and that is the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee, is full, but almost every other committee continues to accept applications for a limited time. With that in mind, I'll call the question on the appointment of the individual that was just named. All in favor, please. Good. Thank you. That passes. Moving onwards, I'm going to invite the North Grenville Chamber of Commerce to come up to give a presentation. Welcome, Terry Lynn. And then we'll move to the why. So we're just flipping the order. Welcome. And just turn on that red button once you get settled so we can hear you. We'll take it from there. Apologize, yes, it shines red once it's on black. Yeah.
There we go.
And if you could, I'm so sorry, but the audio isn't great unless you're really speaking into it. Awesome.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Would we be able to move back? Keep going back if you don't mind. There we go. Perfect. Awesome. So my name is Terry Lynn, and I'm the Executive Director of the North Grenville Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce is an association or network of business people designed to promote and protect the interests of its members. The Chamber of Commerce is often made up of a group of business owners that share an interest in their community. All right, if you can move ahead. Perfect. Let's get started then. So we want to share with the council and residents how the Chamber has benefited from the grant that we received from the municipality. The grant has allowed us one full-time and one part-time staff member instead of just the one part-time person. The investment from the municipality has essentially tripled the ability to support the local business community throughout North Grenville. The funding that was given to the Chamber helped with manpower and allowed the Chamber to host and participate directly in more activities to canvass for advertising and sponsorship revenues to support other events in the community, and encourage former members to come back to the Chamber or signed up many new members. With the boost in staffing, we were able to pursue and successfully have an outcome of obtaining a non-repayable funding grant for $79,000 from the Southeastern Ontario Regional Tourist Organization. Most of you know it as R209, as part of the Government of Canada's Tourist Relief Fund. The R209 was pleased to provide approximately $5 million in FedDev funding for 81 local tourism organizations and businesses that will safely welcome back visitors in Ontario, as well as recover from the impact of the pandemic and prepare for future growth. So, if you wouldn't mind. And then next one, please. Perfect. The board is excited to share for the first time that with this funding, we have purchased 4 metal benches, 4 bike repair kits, bike racks, and an information kiosk, and an additional 2 beautiful benches that will be placed at the local public library. The staff at the library provided the literary quote that will be displayed on these benches. Then the chamber also took advantage of, so we'll show you the next picture, please. So these are the 2 benches that will be going outside of the library. And the words that are on the page, those are actually words of business, like power, professionalism, all those words to make it flow like a page. So those are blurred on there that you can kind of see. So we look forward to seeing the installation of these and the others in the coming months. By capturing this grant money with an additional resources, we were proud to have the ability to build attractions that benefited both residents and visitors, and ultimately our local business community. So direct impact for our chamber members. We have been hard at work ensuring that we have gathered and implemented the right content and the most up-to-date data for our members to successfully run their business. We have offered mentoring, assisted new businesses in planning and development, and worked closely with ECDEV with Matt Gilmore. We have been able to reach more businesses and provide resources to support with startups and do workshops, mentoring programs, and information about funding opportunities with other organizations like Grenville CFDC and the Small Business Enterprise. This is why the continued funding is imperative for the chamber to continue to operate. We have provided over 30 newsletters to our chambers in the last few months, sharing their successes and tips and providing them an opportunity to advertise at a low income or low cost, showing them our support. North Grenville Chamber of Commerce is committed to businesses throughout the entire municipality, including those in the smaller hamlets and outskirts of North Grenville. The Chamber's footprint is the same as the municipality of North Grenville, which means that our events and initiatives are inclusive to businesses all across the community. We believe that all businesses, regardless of the size or their location, should have access to the same support and resources. That is why we strive to provide equal opportunity for all our members. Our vision aligns well with the vision of municipality, which is to focus on promoting economic development, fostering a strong sense of community, and creating a high quality of life for our residents. By working together with the municipality and other community partners, we hope to create a vibrant and thriving business community throughout North Grenville. Our members have expressed the need to get back out there and are looking for networking and advertising opportunities that in the past were limited to how many we could manage due to part-time staff. So that's no more. We are proud to share that we have hosted 2 Alive After 5 events at Chamber Businesses, and most recently hosted our first business expo held at the Municipal Center. We have sold out for our upcoming event in May, which will be held at the Endearing Heart Bed and Breakfast, and we look forward to many more opportunities to host at Chamber businesses. Our overall revenue was up in 2022 by 56%, with the bulk of that coming from events like Little Black Dress event and sign advertising for Kempville Live and IPM. Overall expenses and percentages of revenue were down by 10%. And we recently returned to our beautiful office space that we leased from the municipality as well. This space has allowed us to have our business meetings in there and offer the space to other community chamber members if they're looking for a place for a board meeting or a get-together. Membership revenue so far for 2023 is up by 20%, and the number of members is up by 30%. And this would not be possible without the support of a full-time executive director. We would like to update our website moving forward to allow our members to have access to their own accounts so that they can keep their information as up to date as they can. The cost for that is quite substantial. Close to $4,200 is a few of the quotes for upgrading our website. We would like to provide space for advertising as well on that website to offer those at an affordable rate to our members for advertising. We would like to become an information hub with potential new business for potential new business owners who would want to open their businesses here in North Grenville, to provide a warm welcome and guide them through the next steps of their business journey. For example, having information of available rent space and available lands, or knowing our bylaws and providing contacts for the municipality in each department. Let us be there to help encourage our young diversity. That doesn't flow. Encourage our young entrepreneurs. We look forward to continued support through council helping share on social media and attending our events, as well as future funding so that we can continue to provide for this vibrant community. Thanks for listening. That's what I have.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions, colleagues, for the Chamber? Councillor Barclay?
Thank you, Terry Lynn. It's great to hear from the Chamber, and I encourage you to come back as often as you want. Certainly once a year would be great. You mentioned that you had an increase in membership. Did you suffer a decline during COVID? What happened to membership?
Yeah, definitely. We went down from like 120 to 70 during COVID, and so with everyone's gung-ho now, so
yeah.
It's full steam ahead. So it's definitely, we're seeing a lot of businesses start because of the pandemic.
Right. Home-based businesses
So
are some of them?
like a lot of lawn, for
Okay.
like yard maintenance, things like that. Handymen and handy people are coming out of the woodwork, which is lovely because there's a real shortage of that in the community. We have big builders, but it's really hard to find somebody to do a bathroom reno or so it's kind of nice to see those people. We have a lot of businesses as well that have always been here, but I think they're just wanting to network, and so they're looking for groups to come together and do that. Like at our Alive After 5, we've had 2 or 3 businesses per event that have been open in North Grenville for like 5 years or more, and I would never heard of them. So.
Yeah. Sorry, very impressive numbers in terms of your growth of membership,
Yeah.
coming from a decline during the COVID years.
And with that, some of those are returning members that couldn't pay rent or they couldn't be open, and now they're returning because they think it's worthwhile.
Just a final question. I don't want to put you on the spot, but part of the package that we had were your financials, and I was just curious to note that the grant is listed as like a negative expense, which is it wasn't listed as income, so I'm not sure. It all balances out in the end, but I found that very curious.
So I believe it wasn't added because it wasn't a given yet.
Oh, I see.
Is how they chose to record it.
Oh, okay, great. Have you got it?
No.
No, it's coming, right?
We hope so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you very much, and through you, Madam Mayor, to Terry Lynn, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your commitment to active transportation and commitment to having a bike rack and those park benches at the library, which are very unique, and I like them.
Yeah.
I may have missed this. Did you speak about bike racks too?
Yes.
Okay.
So 4 bike racks as well.
Okay.
And they're 6 feet.
So I see this photo here. I'm wondering.
So the photo is not accurate of the size so that ours are 6 feet.
Are they that style? They're the loops? Oh, thank goodness. Okay. Okay. Because these are very difficult to lock your frame to.
And also, we wanted to encourage people that have the fat bikes, the
Yep.
tires
Yep.
can fit through and lock up
Okay,
nicely.
thank you. I just wondered if you had worked with the Active Transportation Advisory Committee or Parks and Recreation regarding locations for these?
So, yes, we have. We've had multiple meetings with Mr. Guy.
Excellent.
And we're in the process of figuring out where they'd be best placed
Okay,
in
great.
the
Well,
community. Yeah.
thank you very much. I'm thrilled to see that
Yeah,
coming. Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Strachan?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Terry Lynn. It's great to see the chamber here and to get an update from you. I love what this money is going to be put towards, and that you've coordinated a lot with Parks and Rec. Some of the points that you brought up here about being the hub for businesses and letting folks know what spaces are available for rent and so on. I see that a lot of that is being done right now by Matt Gilmer and Invest North Grenville and that side as well. Do you see your roles shifting in that you take over certain responsibilities for that, or would you be providing the same information just through to a different group effectively?
No, we would continue to work with Matt Gilmore, but he's only one, and I'm only one. So if we work together, we're just stronger together. So as long as he has update information and I share mine with him, then that website and our website should look very similar, and so that we're all on the same page when we're handing out information, right? So there's certain things that I think we would like to be able to offer. When I see businesses coming in to our municipality, they're often very excited. They approach the counter and they are given Matt Gilmore's business card and then they turn around and head out. So I would like to figure out a way where we can welcome them more, make it exciting. We want businesses to come to our community. We want quality businesses here so that people in our community will stay, shop here, and so I'd like to spruce up the welcoming part of it. And if that means that they have to stop in at the chamber office before they go along and get Matt Gilmore's email address and information, I wouldn't mind helping with that either.
Yeah, that sounds great. Matt
Yeah.
Gilmer plus chamber, or chamber plus Matt Gilmer, but that both are
Exactly,
in the loop.
yeah.
Okay,
Because he can only do so much and I can only do so much, so yeah.
excellent. Thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome.
Certainly, maybe to build on that, there have been some conversations about making sure that when people walk into the municipal building, to your point, not necessarily and not everyone, especially people who are newer, would understand the array and diversity and depth of the business community. So I know as we prepare for the chamber event in a few weeks, featuring myself and some local businesses, I think we are keen to ensure that people walk out the door through contact with the chamber or with ourselves with a very fulsome understanding of the array of services, whether it's blinds or shutters or a local carpenter or, a fabulous salt therapy spa, and on it goes. So I think it's fair that we all, I think, are very committed, as Matt is, to a more robust sort of information sharing strategy.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, and I think having something in print or being able to visualize a
Well, the
directory.
website is almost there, like your economic, it has all that information
It is.
there.
Yes,
It's how are people to get there?
indeed.
It's that
Precisely.
one step, that welcome to, here's all the information that's already provided through our municipality.
And that is an excellent point, because we have a fabulous directory. We just have to make sure people actually go to it.
Can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think when people come to North Grenville as newer residents, you know, they're so focused on just getting what they need. They're not necessarily always looking around, and they don't always know the size of the community or the history. So I think we're hopeful to be able to launch a bit of a renewal strategy later in April, May, later this spring, I should say, where there will be a lot of clarity for anyone walking into the municipality that there is a directory. Please take it.
Yes.
These lovely businesses will take care of you, and they're eager to hear from you. So
Awesome.
I just wanted to ask, and I know I have a little more background than some of my council colleagues, the bike rack and repair stations. How was that grant secured? So where did that all materialize? It's fantastic that you're able to enter into that partnership with the municipality, but how did that grant land on your radar screen? I'm just curious to know.
Well, when
Yeah.
we had our other full-time staff, her job was to look for grants
Okay.
and look for ways to improve the chamber and grow, and that was one of the ones that we took on.
Oh, great. And you obviously continue to pursue a variety of different grants.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
I know coming out of COVID, right, that grant funding landscape may look a little bit different.
A lot of it's non-
What's your assessment of how much sort of external funding is available?
There's not
right
a
now?
lot what's the word I'm looking for? Nonprofit. There is not a lot available, and we're nonprofit, and so, but there is certainly a lot of businesses that are taking advantage of the grants, like the Digital Main Street,
Gotcha.
the facade grants through, and then there's micro grants through Grenville CFDC that we're always referring people to. So hopefully there will be more coming down through the pipes that will be maybe more directed towards what we're doing in the business community, but right now there is not.
Okay, thank you. Any last questions, colleagues, comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for taking the time to be here. We appreciate it. Are we moving to receive the report? Thank you. Okay, so I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Councilor Strachan, Councilor Barclay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. That is that council received this presentation from the NG Chamber of Commerce for information purposes. We have a mover and seconder, and I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. Thanks for your time. Okay. And with that, we'll invite Mr. Rob Adams to come forward in regards to the North Grenville Partnership. I see you have a colleague, so you can introduce her at your pleasure, Mr. Adams.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. It's great to be back. I'm Rob Adams. I'm the YMCA of Eastern Ontario CEO, and I've brought a senior member of our senior management team along with us who handles our operations for the region. I'm going to have her introduce herself.
Thanks. Emily Wimpenny, and I am our Regional Director of Operations and Programs.
So we have a short slide presentation. We're really more interested in answering your questions related to the document. So if I could just have the next slide, please. So the YMCA obviously navigated through the pandemic, and we're fully reopened now. Staff and the board have tried to refocus itself a little bit through a bridge strategy leading into the next strategic planning cycle. Our work plans and our budgets are surrounded around the nucleus of renewal and growth, but focusing on 4 key areas: culture, stability, increased our impact, and stewardship and strong partnerships. Our strong partnerships are also global across the YMCA movement. We support YMCAs in Nicaragua, Kosovo, and the Ukraine, believing that our local impact can have a global impact because we have local residents who either have families in those places or have moved to Canada who reside in the areas that we serve. So we believe having a global impact is equally important. Next slide, please. So a few things to celebrate is that we have already a strong partnership with the municipality of North Grenville. I arrived as CEO in 2018, working alongside my colleague Emily, and we started conversations with municipal staff very early. And for the last 4.5 years, we've built a strong collegial relationship based on transparency and communication. But we've also ran 3 full summers of summer camp. We had to take a pause because of COVID due to lockdowns. But the local impact is that we've been able to provide over 1,400 camper weeks, served over 600 children and youth. And the uniqueness of the YMCA is that we're a charity where economic circumstance or social background shouldn't be a barrier. So 13% of all campers that attended camp from North Grenville received some sort of level of subsidy from our subsidized program. 1,400 camper weeks equals many, many more camper days, which also equals many more individual positive Y stories on a daily basis. I'll also share that the overall satisfaction scores of camp scored over 90%, above the national average of Y camps of 87%. Next slide, please. So we're here to talk about the next evolution of our partnership, building upon the partnership. From an aquatic standpoint, we already have municipal partnerships with the town of Prescott and city of Brockville, not mentioned the city of Kingston, where at one point in time they converted their full-service recreation facility into a homeless shelter during COVID, and we worked out an agreement where city users can access our YMCA facilities. Loyal's Township, with their pool challenges recently right now, we provide programs and services to their municipal constituents to provide access and support with staffing and licensed swimming lessons and access to pools. We have partnerships with school boards, St. Lawrence College, Special Olympics, and also swim clubs. Management is provided by certified trained YMCA professional staff with extensive experience in this area. Emily is our subject matter expert in aquatics and is well respected across the province and country. We have the ability to leverage both local, provincial, and national aquatics programming expertise. Ongoing support, leadership, and consultation from YMCA staff who have expertise in the areas of day camp and aquatics programs and service on a regular basis with municipal staff. The YMCA is also a recognized leader in aquatics with our own accredited swim lesson curriculum. Next slide, please. So that's the quick outline of a brief update of the YMCA, because again, I'm more interested in answering questions that council might have.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. Well, as you know, we had an initial discussion just under a week ago where we addressed some specifics around the Memorandum of Understanding with our own staff who are here this evening. So I'll just open it up for any questions. I know that we were, I think, hoping to see a slightly modified version of the MOU. So perhaps Mr. Guy or Ms. Holbrook, you want to speak to that piece?
Sorry, just give me a minute here.
No problem. While you're getting ready, Ms. Holbrook, any other questions or concerns, reflections, observations for the Y? I'll go to Councillor Deputy Mayor Barclay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Rob. Hi, Rob, and welcome, Emily. I think you've been before us before, haven't you? A while ago?
A bit around at different
okay. All right.
different community things.
Yeah, welcome both. I think I can speak on my behalf that I'm very excited that, you know, we're talking about a partnership to run the aquatics program here, and that the Y brings, you know, serious program management skills and expertise. You mentioned, Rob, that over the 3 years experience running the summer camps, that about 13% were financially assisted to some level. On average, you know, what do your programs usually run in terms of subsidized positions?
Through you, Madam Mayor, roughly right now we're at about 20% right now of all of our programs are fully subsidized. At times, it's been as high as 25 to 30%. Through COVID, return rates are different, but I'd say about 1 in every 5 people receive a level of subsidy overall from the YMCA of Eastern Ontario.
Councillor Strachan?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Rob and Emily, for being here tonight and to take some of our questions. I know that, I don't know if you had a chance to hear the questions that came to us last week from some residents and so on, some of the concerns that they had. So I think I'm just going to sort of touch on a few of them. Perhaps you can explain the Y's position in some of these areas. One thing that became very obvious is that the pool and people who have lived here for a long time see it as almost sacred ground or sacred waters, that it's a very special place for them, and they want to see the programming that they grew up with or their kids have gone through, that there's a certain level of maintenance and the types of programs that are available, swim team and so on. So that'll be my first question is the commitment from the Y on what kind of programming is available. And how you foresee sort of negotiating that space. The other part is growing our local capacity and competencies with our youth to be able to, go through the swimming program and eventually take on responsibilities as instructors and life-saving and so on, and sort of where the Y would see this. And I know that there's a good relationship between the Y and North Grenville at this stage. I think some folks will see this as Brockville coming into North Grenville, and how does that look, when you're not, we'll call it not a local organization, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I guess those two pieces, when you look at the programming and you look at building the local capacities, what would you like to say about those two areas?
Yeah, I'll talk about the evolution of the Y. We're not the Brockville YMCA, we're the YMCA of Eastern Ontario. Mm-hmm. And I think I already articulated that we already have aquatics relationships from Loyalist Township all the way to Prescott. And so the YMCA has been around here for over 160 years, so it wasn't always a Brockville YMCA pool. We've evolved to meet the needs of the communities that we serve. So our goal from YMCA perspective is to collaborate with municipal staff and the municipality so you can serve your community, but also so we can extend our reach, serve the community, but also provide access to things that otherwise some people may not be able to afford to. So from a program development standpoint, again, we're a proven entity. We would look at, again, collaborating in partnership with municipal staff to understand the needs of the community. We do have an accredited, certified lesson program that does meet the needs of all ages, similar to what I would assume most municipality ran pools would understand and would provide. So while I don't anticipate many changes, language may change, but in terms of meeting the goals of water safety, programming, and access, I don't see that changing.
Okay, thank you.
Does that?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, okay.
I guess the other part to that question was with youth coming up through the program, there's been a history of sort of being able to allow those folks to be employed here and continue on with their training and so on.
Yeah, our goal, like any other goal, is to be representative of the communities, again, that we serve. So the majority of our lifeguard staff are young leaders. So based on that, and based on our history of hiring for camp, many have come from this area. From a lifeguard certification standpoint, there is a national, global shortage of lifeguards because of the pandemic. So we feel it's important to try to recruit that by way of offering subsidies for those programs, scholarships, with the commitment of being employed. We are talking about a 2.5 month time frame. So some of that is going to be challenging, but that doesn't mean the relationship discontinues because the summer ends. Like, again, being in the YMCA of Eastern Ontario, there could be secondary education students that are in Kingston. So if you're an employee of the YMCA and you're working here and you're headed to Kingston to go to school, an employee is an employee of the Y. And so there could be opportunities for those individuals to expand their opportunities at other locations.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Oh, Ms. Holbert, do you want to add in terms of any proposed considerations around the MOU?
Just wanted to highlight that terms updated on the MOU are located on page 4 of the MOU under privacy and legislative and licensing requirements. Those two sections have been updated, and the operational requirements has been reworded to state that the YMCA and the municipality will collaborate on service levels based on available staff, fees, and wages, and review at season's end. So just to be clear, we are looking to partner and collaborate, and we want to have a relationship that is mutually beneficial and of mutual respect. And so that is the approach that we're taking in the MOU. Certainly, if we have approval to move forward and sign the MOU, we'll move ahead with the specifics of planning what the season will look like, and we'll review after the season is over together as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And I understand that the MOU is annual, so it's a MOU for 1 year, subject to review and any resets that need to take place in terms of things that the Y or the community may wish to see for forthcoming years. Mr. Adams?
Yeah, if I can just piggyback on that, Madam Mayor, we want this for a year for specific reasons because of the positive relationships that we've already created. So anything can start looking to be reviewed, and to expand the partnership agreement to multiple years would only make sense after the first year of reviewing it and seeing how we did, just to make the improvements or blind spots that maybe we missed.
And I know we have a resident tonight who was trying to connect into the meeting. Of course, unfortunately, in this building right now, we can't do hybrid meetings. So if you're not in person, you don't have an opportunity to participate. So I just, on her behalf, I just want to reiterate that some of those operational pieces, if you will, which are the subject of a partnership between the Y and certainly the municipality, those operational pieces such as programs, in terms of swim team, swim lessons, access to other public and family swims and senior swims, which are very coveted here, operating hours, the length of the season, the fee structure, the staffing structure, and training for staff is really the subject of a collaborative dialogue between the municipality and the Y. I understand, based upon our conversation last Tuesday, that certainly we want to make sure that to the extent possible, this year's program looks similar to past years. But at the same time, both the municipality and the Y may find opportunities to improve service levels or to introduce new programs or go in new directions based upon the mutual experience we have this year, and that potentially could inform next year's MOU. Is that a fair characterization of the relationship?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's fair. I think it's also reflective. Again, a lot of these are tied to staff availability in terms of schedules, lessons, blocks. The amount of what we can provide really ties to staff availability. So in terms of, again, language may change, names may change, but again, being a proven entity with a history of success, I really am confident that we'll be able to provide a service and a collaboration that the community can be proud of.
Great, thank you. I'll just recognize Councillor Strachan again. Go ahead, Councillor Strachan.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, too, I believe Ms. Hurlbert will be best positioned to answer this question because it sort of relates to the MOU. Is one of the other areas of concern was about the programming costs and where, whenever there's a change, a new entity coming over, whether or not we could expect insignificant changes. And I just, I guess, without obviously committing to what those numbers look like or anything like that, what is the intent behind the programming costs, and should there be a need for changes or anything like that? How will those be dealt with?
Thank you. So the approach will be collaborative. It'll be sitting down and going over the details. What are the available staff? What programs can we run with the staff that we have? We've had a good, as I said last week, a good application base, and so we're expecting to sit down and nail out those details together and make sure we're happy with them. I'll say that the municipality, as we've run the pool, haven't increased rates in years. It's not something we do frequently or without great level of thought and even public input. So collaboratively, we'll find a way forward if that's necessary, but it won't be a surprise if it does have to happen at some point.
And I know.
Rob, would you like to add something?
Yes,
If
Mr.
that's
Adams.
okay, through
Yes,
Madam Mayor,
go
just
ahead.
the other aspect that I want to reiterate is that all fees are attached to the charitable status of the Y. So previously, the fees that were attached to the municipality for those who couldn't even afford those fees may have found that as a barrier. However, whatever fees are established, and again, in collaboration, if individuals cannot afford those fees, they will receive subsidy from the YMCA. So even if fees haven't changed in years, but they're under the YMCA umbrella, even those fees that are a barrier now receive the opportunity to receive subsidy.
Great. Lastly, just in terms of the Bluefins program, I think Councillor Strachan, you touched on this. It's akin to the hockey community, and I think you have a son who plays hockey, so you understand. So with that in mind, I just want to be clear that I think the expectation is Bluefins remains Bluefins, donated equipment, all of the things that have supported the Bluefins brand and all the families who get behind Bluefins remain in place in terms of the Campbell swim team.
Well, I'm not as familiar with the Bluefins, but I'll share with you, we have arrangements and partnership agreements with other swim clubs who operate independently within our pools. I'm not sure if this is a municipal team or if this is staff-led team, but similar to Prescott, this again will be tied to staff availability and coaching. And so if the equipment is there, the equipment is there. Again, from a programming standpoint, I'm sure municipal staff and the Y can collaborate on supplies and how that looks. Again, a team exists if there's a coach available from a staffing standpoint. So again, a lot of this, this is not 2019 aquatics. This is aquatics in the day and age of 2023 with a national shortage of qualified staff. And that's the key, to be able to have qualified staff.
Indeed. Ms. Hilbert?
Yeah, so it is a staff-run team for sure, but with great support and involvement from swim team families, and lots of energy from the kids. And certainly in the past, we've done we had a new logo developed by our in-house multimedia designer, and that logo has been made accessible to the parents so that they can go out and order swim team clothing items and things like that, and they do fundraising amongst themselves to do that sort of thing. And again, we're looking to continue supporting those families and enjoying the program for every summer and building those swimmers, acknowledging that a lot of our staff have come out of being swim team kids, and it is a great development program.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan, I apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Director Guy or Ms. Hurlbert. I'm just wanting to know the subsidy. I hear that the YMCA has subsidy available for the day camps as well as for swimming. Did the municipality also have subsidies?
I can answer that. We did not. Okay. However, if we had requests for subsidies, there are some agencies in the region who provide that type of subsidy, and so we provided that contact information and passed them on to the next agency. Yeah, okay. We could not do that ourselves.
Okay, so thank you. So now we will have subsidies available to families through the Y. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there's nothing else from council, we were obviously taking advantage of your time here
that's great.
as a delegation to consider, obviously, the updated MOU. Colleagues, we can wait until the Parks and Rec portion of the agenda or deal with it now. It might be more practical to wait until we get to Parks and Rec, but I defer to you. Under the Parks and Rec portion of our meeting, there is an updated MOU. So we can give consideration to it now or later. My preference is later, so let's do it later. Let's carry on with the meeting. I think we've gotten the information we need from our guests this evening. Thank you for being here. Okay. So with that in mind, we will move on. And I'm now returning to item I, which is our consent agenda. We just have one item under the consent agenda, and that is Public Works Pitch in Canada Week. Colleagues, is there anyone who wishes to modify the proposed agenda for consent? Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to pull the pitch-in off of the consent agenda so that it can be shared publicly for information and promotion. Thank you.
Okay. So with that in mind, we effectively have no consent agenda because there was just a single item. So I'll move on. Under reports, item K.2.1, we do have the bylaw to adopt the 2023 budget. And that is that Council approve and enact bylaw 4023, a bylaw to set the 2023 water and wastewater operating and capital budgets for municipal purposes. Colleagues, this is a fairly administrative matter. As we know, we had robust discussion on the budget, which was approved. Many budgets were approved about 6 weeks ago. So this is simply the bylaw to enact those budgets. Mr. Orgarende, is there anything you want to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. There's no real new information to add other than to let Council know that all of the resolutions and the adjustments that were made at the meeting of February 28th have been included in this bylaw.
Okay. Excellent. So with that in mind, I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the motion as presented. Councillor Barclay, Councillor Sullivan, thank you. I'll just scan the room for any comments or questions. Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor, please. Thank you. We have a bylaw, and Mr. Orgarende, you have the authority to collect the necessary tax dollars. Can I ask, just because I'm not sure if we publicly stated it, the combined tax rate when we took into account the modifications of the county's tax rate meant an overall tax rate increase for residents and businesses in North Grenville of, do you have that number handy, perchance?
Through Your Worship, I believe it was 5.35%, but the analysis was specifically for the residential assessment. It didn't include the commercial assessment.
Gotcha. Okay.
And yes, it has been posted on as a web media release on the website.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Strachan, I don't think it was 5.3%.
It was 4.35.
That's correct, 4.35.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, my heart was palpitating a bit, I must say, because I didn't remember that either. So 4.3% is what we've landed. There were some significant efforts at the counties to reduce what had been a proposed tax rate increase of nearly 10%. So with significant effort on the part of county staff and county's council, we were able to get that down. So that helped to reduce the overall impact of the tax rate on residents, thank you, here in North Grenville to 4.3%. And hopefully we only have to do that once, but you never know. So we'll move on to corporate services. I believe Ms. Jeannot, is Ms. Jeannot here? I can't see her. And I correct the record, I've been saying Ms. Jeannot for a very long time. So I am now properly pronouncing her name, and I apologize for the years of saying it incorrectly. But, you know, all those years of virtual really made it harder to kind of do that follow-up after the meetings. But over to you, Ms. Jeannot, for the departmental work plans and strategic updates.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. Much appreciated. So I'm here tonight to present the update to the strategic plan as well as the 2023 department work plans. Next slide, please. So as Council knows, you adopted the Community Strategic Plan in January 2022. Since that time, staff have been working on many of the initiatives in the plan. So tonight's report will just review some of the changes that have been made as well as the completed items. And in addition, we'll review the 2023 work plans. Next slide, please. So this may be a little bit hard to read, but this just goes through the changes that have been made to the strategic plan. Again, we're only in year 1, so there hasn't been too many changes, but we've just made some minor changes to better reflect really the reality of our community. So the first one there, so we've denoted create an arts and culture implementation policy and establish an arts and culture fund as complete. I will note as well that I missed 3 other items that have been complete. They are noted as complete in the public dashboard of the strat plan, just not in the hard copy that's attached to the agenda tonight. The second item, we added the following action: review emergency and protective services to ensure the needs of our growing community are met at the direction of Chief Oakham. This was an important item that needed to be added to the plan. We changed the one item about recruiting medical professionals to be a little bit more specific about what we're actually doing in our community. And in addition, we changed the EDI action to better reflect the groups that we have sought input from through our strategy that is currently underway. And just an administrative change, we changed our numbering to match the format of our software. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we do have an online dashboard where residents can go and see up-to-date information on the actions of the strat plan, and that can be found at northgrenville.ca/vision. Next slide, please. And this is a little hard to read, but this gives an idea of what can be found online. So there is an update which states accomplishments and next steps, and then we do have the availability to view metrics as well. Next slide, please. And now into the work plan. So this is a sample from the long work plan document that was attached to the agenda. So this gives an idea of one department. So this is planning and development. And you can see the bolded sections are the divisions within planning and development. So we have building, bylaw, and planning. You'll note that under bylaw, there's currently no actions, but that's totally normal. Bylaw is one of our more operational divisions. So every year they may not have bigger initiatives that will be denoted in the work plan. Next slide, please. And this slide gives an idea of what an update will look like to the work plan. So in a few months, we'll come back to council and staff will have updated their work plans, where in the third column from the left, you'll see accomplishments and next steps. So that concludes the presentation. We're hoping that you'll receive the report as well as adopt the updates to the strat plan for 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Jeannot. So any comments, colleagues? This is a fairly fulsome document, having given it some consideration and review before this evening. So many of the priorities of council, I think, are well reflected here. It's great to see sort of certain priorities or preoccupations crystallized in a very concrete way. I think it allows our senior management team to feel that they're working in tandem with council. In some cases, they're taking the lead or they're responding to what we're hearing from the community as council members. But if there's anything one wishes to flag this evening, then feel free to do it, council colleagues. Deputy Mayor, go.
Yeah, thank you. Just a comment, Madam Mayor. I'd like to echo your comment about where staff takes leadership. So I found it very informative to read through the work plans and discover some things that I didn't know were happening that I was really grateful were happening. So it was a great read. And just to let people know that I think the community should be very proud of this document because, as I say often, they wrote it. There was immense consultation, I think unprecedented in this community. So it's really the community's strategic plan. And the fact that we're going to report, annually, if not semi-annually, on the progress, I think it helps us stick to the knitting, if I use that analogy, or hold our feet to the fire is another way of putting it. So I think it's great. Great to have the plan and great to have these updates. So thank you.
And Ms. Janot, apologies, from your perspective, what's, if there was to be a course correct, right, in the middle of the year, something emerges as a priority that was unforeseen for whatever reason, because council's hearing it from the community or internally, there's a need for adjustment. How are those changes reflected throughout the year? I assume it's an evolving document and adjustments can be made as we go along. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Through your worship, I'd say if anything emerges throughout the year that's more of an urgent matter, we'll of course take direction from council through meetings such as this and then update the following year accordingly.
Okay. And I know we did have certainly a comment around planning where absolutely much is happening. So I in no way want to diminish how busy our planning staff are. I know there was a member of the public who expressed their concern around the explicit mention of our concerted actions to bring more affordable housing into the community. I know it's an ongoing file and many different things are happening. I think it wasn't featured in the planning work plan in perhaps a way that had been expected. And I assume that perhaps there can be an adjustment there so we can give the community reassurance that there is a lot happening on housing and we're right in the middle of, in many respects, trying to implement some refreshed and updated housing policies. And every time a developer walks through their door, that's one of the first conversations. So would it be fair to expect that you might be working with planning staff to make sure that update is reflected?
Through your worship, absolutely. I did note one of the actions wasn't denoted as complete in the hard copy of the strat plan. That's 1.5.1, which is to complete a housing strategy. So we did update that to reflect that Amy, our director of planning, did complete that this past year. And then in discussions with her today, obviously there's a lot going on with housing, including the new housing committee that's been struck by council. Applications are open until April 6th if anyone is interested. So that group will certainly be acting out some of the recommendations from the housing strategy, but we can certainly add it back into the strat plan to note we're still working on it.
And while we're at it, just one other thing, if council can indulge me. I noted the creation of a volunteer engagement and development program with a staff lead being our rec coordinator, who I believe is here this evening. Mr. Guy or Ms. Holbrook, do you want to speak to that? Because I think that's a newer development to some extent, or perhaps a formalization of work that was already being undertaken. Ms. Holbrook?
Absolutely, through your worship. The plan is to put some effort into the development of the volunteer base in the community and strengthening of organizations who work with volunteers. This was something that's been on our minds for several years now, but during the COVID pandemic, of course, we saw a great decline in the number of people who were engaging in volunteering in the community, and in many communities, we're certainly not alone in that. But coming out of that, we're hearing a lot of organizations are struggling and need support to help re-energize the community, as well as engage new community members in volunteerism where they may not be aware of opportunities or are seeking opportunities. So we're going to create some formality around how we present that information to the community, how we engage volunteers, how we develop those organizations, and create a new program to move forward in partnership with a number of organizations locally who have already expressed interest in being involved, including the local volunteer center or the regional volunteer center, St. Lawrence Rideau.
And maybe, Ms. Holbrook, very quickly, we know that we often hear that the volunteer base is dwindling, but yet I was at the Maple Fest event this weekend at our agroforestry center, an 18-acre active sugar bush, if anyone's wondering. And I heard from the youth center that a number of people had just randomly shown up to make pancakes, and they were sort of unequipped, and they weren't necessarily expecting more volunteers than they needed. So it seems in this community, as people move in, as people retire, there remains some appetite, I think, to become connected to the community. What's your observation? Because we often hear that the volunteer base is generally dwindling, and are we in a crisis situation? I'm just curious to know what you've observed so far.
I would agree. I think the volunteers are ready to engage. I think it's a matter of helping them connect, making sure that the organizations are ready to receive them. In a lot of cases, organizations saw some changeover as well. So people who were managing volunteer programs previously, maybe they're not the same people as are currently doing it, and maybe more development for the new people in those roles is needed. So looking to kind of strengthen it from all angles, but definitely I think new residents in North Grenville, alongside their neighbors, are learning what it's like to live in a small town and to have that community spirit, and are picking up quite quickly and are very interested in that. It's probably one of the things that drew them to the community in the first place.
Yeah, if I reflect on I was at the Wild Game Dinner, and once again, people who had been here for less than 2 years came up to introduce themselves. I think, we're very enthusiastic about becoming involved in the community. So I think we're extremely blessed to continue to have, I think, the energy and the enthusiasm of some very committed longtime volunteers that have been in North Grenville for decades, but also, I think, lots of others who are newer but really willing to give their time and their talents. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to further that conversation a little bit, to acknowledge that the North Grenville Curling Club right now has a lot of new members thanks to the Learn to Curl program, and those members have stepped in and volunteered for all kinds of things. It's quite amazing, and I was volunteering at a luncheon a couple weeks ago, and all of the other women that were there in the kitchen, I think there were 5 new faces that I hadn't seen volunteered before. So it's great, and I'd like to acknowledge that RTO 9, along with the municipality, put on a very successful volunteer management workshop, full day. Tammy was involved in that, and it was a great day on recruiting, retaining, managing volunteers, and it was a great day, very worthwhile attending. So thank you, Tammy, for your part in that.
Thank you. And I just realized Ms. Martin is in the room. I'm so sorry I didn't see you because you were sitting in a chair and not at your normal seat. So in speaking of housing in the context of planning, I didn't mean to overlook you, Ms. Martin. I did not see you. I knew you were here, but I couldn't find your lovely face. So is there anything you need to add to the discussion that's transpired? You can certainly come to the front.
I was joking with Councillor Strachan that planning usually typically gets our own night, so there's never any competition for seats in the room. So I can certainly be seeing relegated back to the back seat for others. Just in regards to the housing items, certainly there's a lot of policy that'll be updated through the official plan this year when we do our major 5-year update. So certainly we'll work with Ms. Janot to provide those updates through the work plan to identify which specific policies within the housing strategy will be touched upon and addressed. And certainly in regards to the email I received from the member of the community who is certainly very active on the affordable housing and just the housing profile, which is always appreciated that people stay interested and connected. We are looking at bringing forth a more fulsome report to council later this spring in regards to more housing data coinciding with some data that comes out from the province. So we'll certainly do a more fulsome job of identifying on a yearly basis which items coming out of the affordable housing strategy and the housing strategy, even if they're operational related, just so the public is aware of what we're doing to stay on track of those goals and objectives.
I think we appreciate that, and as you say, that housing committee is a critical additional space, if you will, that's available to the community to continue that conversation. So thank you, and I apologize for not recognizing you earlier. I literally am used to seeing you in a certain position at this table, and I just thought maybe you had a family emergency, had to go home. Okay. I just need to go back. I apologize, Council, but this work plan is very fulsome. I just wanted to return to Parks and Rec. I can see that there is a review of the user fee and pricing policy coming. That appears to be a 2023 priority. Is that correct? Did I get that right, Mr. Guy?
To you, Madam Mayor, yes, that is correct. We are looking at a pricing review. In fact, I think corporate-wide we're going to look at a fees and charges review of all fees and charges, including Parks, Recreation, and Culture.
Okay, and that's fair and that makes sense. The only thing that I struggle with is the language is developer user fee and pricing policy that will include the true cost to deliver Parks, Rec, and Culture services. I guess I struggle with the concept of true cost. We know that Parks and Rec, among other services in the municipality, sometimes do run at a loss. Parks and Rec is one of the primary ways I think we deliver service to our residents. So I'm assuming the notion here isn't that we necessarily cost recover to the true cost, because I think that would be cost prohibitive. Nobody would rent an hour in either of our ice pads. Nobody would certainly use our pools if we were using user fees as the primary fee recovery tool. So I guess the language I would feel concerned could be misleading to residents, right? We accept that any municipality in Canada right now is running Parks and Rec. They're actively subsidizing those programs, and it's a huge piece of our quality of life. So I would just want to ensure that as that review takes place, we're explicit in saying that some amount of subsidy will almost inevitably always be required. And if you disagree, please let me know.
Absolutely correct. We would never, try and recover 100% of our costs. As you said, our ice rinks would be empty.
Yeah.
But I think it's an exercise that was recommended through the Parks and Rec Master Plan, that we at least know what our true costs are and communicate those conversations, to the community, not to the point where we would be, again, asking them to recover 100%. But for our own knowledge, I think it's smart practice to know what our true costs are.
Absolutely. So we look forward to hearing more as things progress. All right, I've done my due diligence. Council colleagues, anything else? Okay.
Well,
Deputy Mayor?
just to comment on Director Guy's, I think it'd be very instructive for the public to know actually, what the true cost is versus the fees, so they can see how we support various initiatives. So I think it'd be great to see.
Okay, sounds good. If there's nothing else, colleagues, there is a motion in regards to this particular piece. I want to thank Ms. Jeannot and all of the members of the senior management team. I know they've worked hard to, I think, adapt to a new system and really try to crystallize in a way that's clear for council and the community how they're working. So this has been most instructive, so appreciate the continued effort. The motion is that council receive the report titled 2023 Departmental Work Plans and Strategic Plan Update for information purposes, and I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take Mr. Strachan and Councillor O'Sullivan, and I'll call the vote. All in favor, please? Good. We're going to take a quick break because we've been meeting for almost 2 hours, colleagues, and then we'll hopefully wrap it up sooner rather than later. So, council colleagues, we're going to reconvene. Okay. So, we've dealt with all matters under corporate services right now. I do not believe there's anything under planning and development that warrants consideration other than what's been said. So we'll move to Public Works, and we have Acting CEO and our Director of Public Works with us. So over to you, Ms. Dunlop.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first report for the Public Works Department is in regards to the Kloss Municipal Drain. Next slide. The staff report for your consideration is authorizing the collection process from the applicable landowners within North Grenville for the Kloss Municipal Drain maintenance. Next slide. Previously, the municipality received a request to undertake maintenance for this municipal drain, and based on the Public Works Department's evaluation of this drain, the scope of work for this project include the removal and replacement of a culvert farm crossing within a specific area of the drain. Next slide. Through a competitive tendering process, Blair Harris Construction Inc. was awarded the earthworks and granular component, and AIL, Atlantic Industries, was to supply the replacement culvert for the prescribed works. All works were completed in fall 2022 for a total cost of $10,043.71, which is divided between applicable landowners within North Grenville. Next slide. As per the conditions set forth in the Drainage Acts, all costs associated with drain maintenance are required to be collected from the affected properties, which needs council's approval to proceed. This concludes my report unless there's questions. Next slide. So this is the recommendation we're asking council to consider.
Okay, council colleagues, any concerns or questions required on this? Seeing none, I'll look for mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor, a seconder, please. Councillor Sullivan, thank you. That is that council approve and enact bylaw 4123 to authorize the collection process from applicable landowners for the Kloss drain. Seeing no hands, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please. Good, thank you. Over to you again, Ms. Dunlop.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The second item for Public Works is in regards to the reallocation of operational funds to a capital program. I do not believe this one has a presentation. So the purpose of this report is to identify the reallocation of $50,000 budgeted for operational street sweeping and reallocate it to the capital funding. This is a change in street sweeping operations for Public Works due to the increased costs, double in the last 2 years, and decreased number of providers, in other words, a lack of competition. Public Works tendered for the purchase of a sweeper and received 3 responses. J.R. Breeson is the lowest priced qualified provider at $51,370. And that completes my report unless there's questions.
And from your perspective, Ms. Dunlop, it's truly the lack of competition that is the major driver, or are there other sort of inflationary pressures?
I would say it's a combination of both, but primarily it is basically competition's been buying up competition, so the pool to draw from is diminished. The other is the draw from the City of Ottawa. We have a tendency to have to wait. Although we put deadlines in, we have to wait till the city is done before the contractors can get to us. So this will be able to provide an efficiency of operations as well as a speed with which we can complete the street sweeping.
Gotcha. Okay, Councillor Sullivan and then Deputy Mayor Barclay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Dunlop, Acting CAO. My question is, is this going to have an impact on human resources for the Public Works Department to do the sweeping themselves with this piece of equipment? Will you be able to handle with what you've got?
Through you, Your Worship. In accordance with the discussions that I've had with the road superintendent, yes, we will be able to. But you are correct. It will be a draw on the resources of the Public Works Department. But we see it as an efficiency. We do have to inspect. We do have issues in regards to leftover material, et cetera, that we handle anyways. But we will have to reallocate resources in the spring to complete this operation, but hopefully in a faster manner than we've seen in previous years.
Thank you. So instead of plowing snow, they'll be sweeping the dirt up, the same crew?
Typically, we tell people that come May, we will not have snow. Hopefully this year that will be the case, and we will be able to get this sweeper in our possession and get going. And the other thing is we can use it other times of the year, right? It will be a municipal asset that we will be able to complete if we get complaints from contractors or various other assorted to sundry people that have a tendency to leave mud and debris on the roads.
Okay, thank you. That makes good sense. Thank you.
Councillor Barclay?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Dunlop. So the $50,000 allocation in this year's budget, was that in anticipation of the fee-for-services doubling, or was that what we spent in years previous contracting street sweeping?
It was in anticipation of an increased cost going out to the service providers. There was a cost comparison included in the report attached. In 2021, we spent $25,034 for the contract. In 2022, the price was elevated up to $51,781. So we see this as an efficiency because, again, we were afraid that that $51,000 cost would again be elevated based on the lack of competition, gas prices, etc.
So just to follow up, so this should be saving us money in years down the road, anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000, this investment.
Through you, Worship, yes, that is the anticipation. It will be an operational asset that we would be able to complete. But we also have to take into consideration the asset management plan for this specific product. So that is the intent, but we will monitor and determine the efficiencies of this, and when the life expectancy of this piece of equipment comes up, we will be able to better answer that that question with better accuracy.
Mr. Sullivan?
Thank you. Is this machine, piece of equipment available now, or is there a supply issue, or you have a line on it already?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, it's available now. All three suppliers gave us that was one of the requirements from the tender process, is that it had to be available and now, because we can't wait 18 months for it. We need to, hopefully in May with no snow, get out there and start at it.
Okay, so the motion is before you, colleagues, in regards to the reallocation. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Barclay, Councillor Strachian, thank you. Seeing no further hands, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please. Good. Thank you. So, Ms. Dunlop, over to you one more time for Pitch in Canada Week.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll keep this nice and short. So North Grenville has participated in the Pitch in Canada program since 2002. Next slide. This program provides pitch in bags for volunteers to clean up public spaces throughout the municipality. Next slide. Public Works recommends that April the 16th through the 23rd as Pitch in Canada Week to allow the residents and volunteer groups to show their civic pride. That completes my report.
Great, thank you. And the bags, for the pitch in bags can be obviously picked up here at the municipality, is that right?
That is correct, Your Worship. We will make the Pitch in Canada bags available for the registration of volunteers at the front desk or through calling the Public Works Department at this building at extension 133, and we will make them available. We also, if there's large quantities of wastes for the scouts or whatever group wishes to create a large pile, we also arrange for pickup. Otherwise, we ask for volunteers to place the pickup bags out with the regular household collection garbage, and they're picked up by our MTerra, our garbage contractor. And no tags are required.
No pay tags. Councillor Strachian?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Dunlop. The Sustainability Fair is on the 16th of April. Will the pitch in bags be available there if folks are registered, or can they register on the spot?
Typically, if we have a municipal booth, we do make them available along with the sign-up sheet, so we can work out some details, I'm sure.
I think there was a huge appetite for those bags at last year's sustainability fair, so it seems to be a practical place to distribute them. One of my best memories last year for Pitchin Week was with, I think, the Beavers, who were incredible, and we covered a very short section of the rail trail right in the heart of town, and I was shocked by the amount of garbage and debris, and it was just off the rail trail. Those beavers, they were tenacious, but you know, some of the materials actually were too heavy for them to manage. But it just goes to show we have so much pride in our community, but there is a lot of debris that seems to be discarded rather recklessly. So it's great to see the week. I should also say I was in Tempo subdivision waiting for my daughter who was at a music lesson, and this group of kids came over and they wanted to show me some debris around the stormwater pond, and really got into the prospect of cleaning up their local area. So if there's a way of making the bags a little more widely available, I think we have even that much more engagement. It's great they're available at the municipality, but I don't know if there's another couple of locations like the library or other places where people saw the bags. I understand there's a registration process, I guess, to keep people honest. Is that the goal with the registration process?
Through you, Your Worship. The idea is that we can report back. So we report back to Pitchin Canada, which affects the number of bags we get the next year. But if people can't get into the municipal center, we've dropped them off. We've left them at the front with the person's name on it to pick up after hours. We've even mailed some bags out. So we try to be as creative as possible, but we do try to maintain the list within this building.
Okay. Well, that's great to know there's after-hours pickup. I think that makes a world of difference sometimes. And as you say, if there are groups or community associations or what have you that would like to make the bags available, it sounds like that's a possibility. Because I think overall, the more people who get involved and pitch in, no pun intended, the better off our community is in the long run. Okay, so is there anything else, Councillor Sullivan? I know you pulled this report. Is there anything else you needed? Okay, great. All right, with that in mind, I believe we are receiving the report and declaring April 16th through April 23rd as Pitchin Week in the municipality of North Granville. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Strakian, Councillor Sullivan. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And I should note that Councillor Debbie Wilson is not here this week because she's in Inuvik visiting her grandchildren, a long-planned visit. So I meant to acknowledge at the beginning that she isn't here because she's taken a couple of weeks to go visit some family. All right, so we'll move on to Parks, Rec, and Culture. And this is the section where we will deal with the draft MOU. We've had the discussion, colleagues. I think to the best of our ability, have sought reassurances on behalf of the community in regards to the nature of the partnership. So I'll look to you for any last questions or comments, as well as to move the motion that's before you, which is to approve the revised MOU and authorize the Director of Parks, Rec, and Culture to execute the MOU on behalf of the municipality. So I'll look to any last comments and or a mover and a seconder for the motion. Okay. Councillors O'Sullivan and Barclay, we have moved and seconded. Is there anything else that we need to determine at this point? Seeing not, I will call the question then. All in favor? Good. Okay, that motion carries. And I assume, Ms. Hurlbert, you'll give us any updates on most notably changes that may occur. I don't think we're expecting very many changes of note, but certainly I would anticipate that you will keep us posted. Do you remain the liaison, if you will, with the YMCA for the purposes of the MOU this year?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you will have a very close eye on how things are going. Okay, and I want to thank Mr. Adams for coming down and being willing to strengthen this partnership, building on some very good work in previous years. So look forward to what can come of this. Thank you. So then we'll move on to Emergency and Protective Services, and we have Chief Oakham here to provide the 2022 Annual Fire Service Report.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. Good evening to you. Good evening, council and staff and public. My presentation this evening is an overview of the 2022 Annual Fire Report. Do we have the slides for that? No slides. I'll go ahead with the report.
Okay, go ahead, Chief Oakham.
So I was starting off with an introduction that a council of a municipality may establish a fire department. If a fire department is established, it shall provide fire suppression services and may provide other fire protection services. A council shall appoint a fire chief for a fire department. The fire chief is responsible to council of the municipality that appointed him or her. This annual report before council this evening provides a general summary of operational detail for the year of 2022. The annual report is for information purposes only and is not intended to supply comprehensive analysis of data, or is it intended to make recommendations. Statistical indicators in the report exhibit an upward trend in the need for fire protection services in North Grenville. Upward trends are reflective of a growing community. As North Grenville continues to experience development intensification, an increase in building stock, population growth, heightened vehicular traffic, and additional service requests, the fire service also experiences the effects of the growth. According to Statistics Canada census, North Grenville population grew 9.2% from the study period of 2016 to 2021. In this slide, we observe statistical data that outlines the increase in fire protection services experienced by the fire service. One of those increases is an increase to emergency notifications to the fire department, up 15.9% from last year. An increase of medical call-outs to the fire department, up 43.5% compared to last year. Reportable fires, up 66.7% compared to that of last year.
Can I interrupt you? Just, sure. I'm curious about context. Are we comparing a pandemic year to a non-pandemic year? If you were to reflect on those changes, right, I guess from 21 to 22, do you see obviously people were home more, right, during the paramedic year? Would that have contributed to fewer calls because people were, just able to remain vigilant in their own homes to a greater extent? What would you attribute that difference to?
We saw no noticeable trends related to COVID-19, other than open-air burning permits. We did see an increase in that. We attributed that possibly to people being home and spending more recreation time at home rather than out. But in terms of the emergency call-outs, we did not see any noticeable trends.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So reportable fires up 66.7% compared to last year. Fire losses, so when there's a fire, we evaluate in estimated dollar losses. We saw an increase of 317% compared to last year. Now that's quite an extreme increase, and the factors when we look at fire losses, there are many factors. So the second comparable that I have to that is I took a comparable over a 5-year average period, which is 20.1% increase. So if we look at it over 5 years, it's still an increase, but not 317% at 20.1%. And as I mentioned, answered the Mayor's question, issuance of annual open-air burn permits rose 4% in 2022 compared to previous years. Residential inspections for fire prevention remained fairly static through the year. Industrial, commercial, and institutional inspections increased 46%. I can comment the large increase was mostly attributed to the international plowing match, where fire prevention officer had to attend inspections of vendors and showcases and tents to ensure safety before opening the event. Refreshment vehicle inspections increased 45%. Again, that was attributed to the international plowing match. We did not see a greater quantity of food trucks in North Grenville, with the exception of the special event that had refreshment vehicles. So that was mostly the increase there. Inspections were conducted by Public Health, the TSSA, and Fire Prevention. Vulnerable occupancy inspections, which include care occupancies, care and treatment occupancies, and retirement homes. Mandatory regulatory annual inspections and fire drills are performed annually as required. Additional inspections were required at one facility simply to assist the owner in achieving compliance for the year. In 2022, there was the addition and opening of the new long-term care facility in North Grenville called Southbridge, which added to our required inspections and fire drills. Legal firms and real estate companies often seek record searches for buildings subject to real estate transactions or financial institutions renewing mortgages. These services increased about 33%. Other searches include Freedom of Information record searches, but those are not included in our statistics. Call types are placed into categories, and they're reported to the Office of the Fire Marshal for statistical purposes. When we look at the categories that we have identified in our report this evening, you will see various categories, and they're generalized. For example, the category refers to rescue, may include water rescues, ice rescues, elevator rescues, automobile rescues, etc. A category such as public hazard can include hydro wires down, fire department responding to materials hanging from a building in the downtown core, to persons detonating fireworks in the community. When we look at our statistics, the top three categories for 2022 for emergency call-outs were false calls, medical calls, and rescues. In 2022, there were 30 reportable fires. Of the 30 fires, 16 of them had dollar losses, while 14 did not have reportable dollar losses. Open-air burning is a result of persons setting open-air fires and the department being called. Reasons might include public complaints as a result of the open-air fire, a fire out of control, or an unauthorized burning. Data shows the volume of emergency call-outs by month. You will see this chart in the report. It's measured by percentage of total. The graph depicts volume of calls per month are relatively consistent with no discernible trends. There was a spike in the month of May. However, we attribute this to the May 21st windstorm that was experienced. North Grenville escaped significant damage. However, storm effects did result in multiple emergency calls to the department, therefore increasing that month's call volume. The next graph illustrated the time of day when emergency calls were received. Each study period shows a 3-hour time slot and is measured over a 24-hour period. Most emergency calls are received between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. during the day. It's to be noted, when most emergency calls are received at this time is when a majority of North Grenville fires are away for work and unable to respond. Evening and nighttime calls are are less, and when a majority of firefighters are more likely to be available to respond. North Grenville provides a volunteer emergency response. This means firefighters are employed as part-time employees. The fire department is not their full-time employment, and they respond if and when they are able. Volunteer is a defined term under the Fire Protection Prevention Act. This is the legislation that regulates fire protection services in Ontario. North Grenville volunteer firefighters are compensated by means of an hourly taxable honorarium. Honorarium assists the firefighters in offsetting personal expenses to provide their service. Volunteer firefighters do not receive employee benefits, nor do they make OMERS pension contributions. As a position of volunteer firefighter is not one's primary career or source of income, long-time retention is less likely than if the position was one's career. An individual's family, their place of residency, their career, and their personal life are all factors that affect retention of volunteer firefighters. North Grenville saw the departure of 3 members in 2022. 1 member and their family moved away from North Grenville. 1 member retired after 25 years of service, and 1 member resigned as they were unable to commit the time necessary due to new job and family commitments. The next graph that was in the report shows a majority of North Grenville team has served for less than 10 years. We also expect additional upcoming retirement based on long-serving members. This data supports the importance of ensuring we have succession planning. We continually to invest in our department. We attempt to find and improve on efficiencies. We remain current with legislative changes, and we adapt to changes in society and our growing community. In 2022, we invested in a records management system. This helps us organize property data, emergency incidents, vehicle and equipment inventory, personnel records, fire prevention records, just to name a few. We're also investing in our existing team. We're also looking at officer development. As well, we're trying to enhance our mid-level management knowledge and skill. We're reviewing the latest recruitment program and assessing areas for improvement, and we're going to recommend amendments to our program. We're assessing our retention strategies. The fire service is an integral part and element of the Corporation of North Grenville. We're strengthening our corporate human resource engagement, and we're developing employment contracts for all part-time employees. Recent legislation requires a fire service to conduct a community risk assessment. We're conducting that internally to develop a community risk assessment which will offer direct employee engagement, and it will help benefit staff knowledge in moving forward with fire prevention programs and initiatives. In summary, the 2022 Annual Fire Service Report has shown that the North Grenville Fire Service is encountering an increase in service levels in most areas. The increase in service levels is reflective of a developing and growing driven community. As North Grenville has already experienced considerable development and continues to grow, we must not lose sight that emergency and protective services must find a strategic balance and harmonize with our growth. A continued increase in service demands will ultimately result in exceeding strain placed on volunteer staff, with the inability to meet commitment requirements. Although the objective of a fire service is to reduce emergencies through prevention and public education, we know that emergencies will continue and fire protection services will be required. That concludes my report, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Colleagues, Councillor Sullivan, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Strachan. Go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Chief Oakham. Thank you for a very detailed report, and again, you and your volunteer department do a fantastic job along with your Deputy Chief, and I was happy to see that there's in the 10-year or in the strategic plan update mentioned that there's ongoing changes or promotions of increased equipment, human resources, et cetera, based on the growth that we are experiencing in North Grenville, because that's certainly we have to be prepared to deal with more people, more properties. I do have a question regarding these record search requests from law offices or real estate firms. 16 in the last year, which was a 33% increase compared to 2021. Do these law firms and real estate firms compensate you financially for these record searches and the copies of the records? I would think that that's something that would be probably an expense to either the seller or the buyer for a transaction. And should it be something that the department has to pay for, the municipality has to pay for? I'm sure it's a little onerous to search all these records.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Peckford, to Councillor O'Sullivan. That's a good question. And to answer your question, yes, we do have in our fees bylaw recovery fees for that level of service. They're basically administrative fee to help offset the time that North Grenville staff provide in completing these record searches.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Chief Oakham, for, as Councillor O'Sullivan said, a very detailed report, and I'm sorry we weren't able to share some of the graphic information with the public tonight, but it is in the report. I just note that you mentioned that our population over the last, well, in that 5-year period from 2016 to 2021 has increased 16%, but that the calls for service is somewhere north of 20%. In other words, calls for service is increasing faster than our population growth, which is pretty great. At some point, we're going to have to transition our volunteer fire service to a paid fire service. That's part of our forward thinking. Is that the case?
Through you, Mayor Peckford, to Deputy Mayor. So yes, we've been in the last year we've been reassessing our responses, the level of services that are being required of us, the firefighters' ability to respond, and we're gathering this data and bringing it together and coming up with strategic ideas and how to help move us forward in a fiscally responsible manner, in a safe manner. And one of the, as Council is aware, one of our advancements is the implementation of a full-time training officer. Although that title is a full-time training officer, that job holds many responsibilities, including emergency response. So that position will work during daytime hours and provide us with emergency responses during the daytime. So we're moving from a volunteer type service to a somewhat composite level of service. We're not jumping from volunteer to strictly full-time. We're trying to be strategic and move forward in a responsible manner to bring our service levels to the growth.
If I might, just a couple of comments. So I think the fire services is doing a great job in terms of public education. And so while those calls for service are increasing faster than the population growth, they could be a lot more if we weren't doing such a great job about educating the public. So I appreciate that. I also note that in a report or a press release concerning a recent fire downtown, that you credited the building owner for being up to date with fire alarms or smoke alarms, that contributed to the fast response of volunteers arriving on the scene. But I think the credit is really due to the dedication of our fire department. There's lots of challenges to being a volunteer, but still they got there within 7 to 11 minutes, which I think contributed to what could have been, a really damaging fire for that building owner. So I just want to acknowledge their contribution to it. It wasn't just the state of the fire alarms, it was, guys getting into their trucks and women getting into their trucks and getting there very quickly. Thank you. Yeah, on a Saturday too, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Strachan?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Oakham, to Chief Oakham. So first off, I think the investments that have been made in the department itself and the equipment, the apparatus, PPE, the personal protective equipment and so on is always a challenge because the funding available to the emergency protective services and the fire services in particular is always limited. There isn't a grant funding that some of the other departments can avail themselves of as well. So I think that the planning that has gone into that has been very good. I admitted to Chief Oakham not too long ago that I was a huge Chicago Fire fan, and then I noticed during the show that they were using the same heavy extraction equipment that we actually have in our fire services, and so I was quite excited to know that I noticed that, and that it's all there. So it's real life, real equipment that's being used, not just on the show, but in our department as well. So. So I think that those, that needs to be noted, that there's investments in planning that go along with the fire services. My question, I guess I have two. One is related to the high growth and adjusting the fire services available. What is the plan of attack that you have? I know that Ms. Jeannot mentioned that in her report about the work plan for this year. Where do you see that sort of evolving over the next year, at least as far as the immediate future goes? And then I have one more question.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Peckford, to Councillor Strachan. First, I might say North Grenville rocks, because if Chicago can do it, we can do it. So. I think it's a good comparable, to be honest with you. It's often thought that volunteer services are not as well trained, or the service level is not as good as a career fire department. And it just goes to show that through the teamwork through council, administration, the fire department, we come together and we can supply the service, same as any career fire department. So kudos to all fire departments across the country. To answer your question about the growth and direction that we're looking at taking, so as I mentioned in previous answer, the training officer was our first major step forward in bringing on another full-time staff position, although we understand that that's a financial impact to the municipality, but it is also a cost of doing business with a growing community. And certainly this training officer is going to support many areas within our fire service. It's going to provide alternative training opportunities for firefighters who missed the training night. They'll be able to now maybe get some one-on-one with the training officer at an alternative time that's suitable for both parties. So we hope to improve our training records and training attendance through this new position as well. Council may recall a couple of years ago, our province closed the Ontario Fire College, which was located in Gravenhurst, Ontario, a very key facility that provided excellent training to firefighters, both volunteer and career, across Ontario. With the closure of the fire college, municipalities are forced to find alternative certification training for firefighters, so we now must send firefighters to regional training centers. The costs have increased, and there's more difficulties because the volunteer firefighter has to take time off work to attend these regional training centers to get trained. So that was a bit of a hiccup, so this training officer position will help us grow there. As well, there's new legislation implemented by the province It's firefighter certification requirements. So now all firefighters, regardless of their status in Ontario, shall meet NFPA standards. That's being phased in. So North Grenville, as well as any other fire department in Ontario, must ensure that their firefighters are certified to the NFPA standards, which will be a forthcoming expense to send firefighters to regional training centers to acquire this. This position, it will also help to provide training towards the regional training center training. As well, the position provides daytime emergency, as I mentioned, response. So it's really helping the emergency service in the emergency response lows during the time of day when firefighters are away attending their careers. So our path moving forward is to continue with a composite style department. So we will be looking at another additional full-time position. We're going to be strategic in that, focusing on areas probably of fire prevention, public education, but this individual will also be a first responder as well. So we're basically filling many duties and achieving various areas of the fire service with these strategies.
A sub-question to that one before I go on to my second one is within the municipal staff, then I'm assuming there's some level of coordination, for example, with Ms. Martin about what the growth looks like and where the needs are. So as she's looking forward to what development and planning looks like for the community, that you're part of the conversation as well. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes, through you, Mayor Peckford, to Councillor Strachan. Excellent question, excellent comment, actually. I can say in the last little while, as we've done some restructuring and some redevelopment, and we've been working much closer with our friends from Planning Division, and Amy has been very active in hearing our comments on the growth and the density and where North Grenville is going and the trending, and she has heard our concerns about how does the fire service maintain the level of service with the growth. So we're working collaboratively, and when we talk development, the fire service is definitely part of the conversation. So we sit on what's called DRT. These are meetings that are held by the Planning Division and bring all divisions together for discussions, and the fire service is a key part of that. So we have great communications moving forward. I know that the Planning Division is very supportive of development in North Grenville, and as we, as the fire service, but we have to be responsible, and we have to grow with it. So that's where these discussions have been going.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, if you'll indulge me, I just have one more quick question. It's related to the more extreme and more frequent significant weather events that we've been seeing over the last, several years, I suppose. We had the derecho last year, and we have, perhaps freezing rain. Who knows what's going to fall out of the skies tonight? I know certainly in my own personal experience, we're experiencing greater power outages, longer power outages, and so on. And so I think that there's probably a lot more people who have generators in their homes, and I'm just wondering, sort of related loosely to your report here, but are there calls that are increasing as a result of the use of generators in homes, specifically related to those, the generators themselves in those events?
And again, through you, Mayor Peckford, to Councillor Strachan, we see no relation to the number of calls related specifically to the use of generators, although we do, from time to time, receive calls. It's obvious that people running generators should do so following manufacturer instructions, not run them indoors, in garages. Certainly it creates a carbon monoxide poisoning atmosphere. So we have not seen an increase in emergency calls in relation to that. I do know that the municipality has received calls in relation to noise from operating generators. But no, not necessarily more calls for dangerous situations by generator use.
Thank you very much.
Okay. If there's nothing else, Council, of course, we want to thank Deputy Chief Randy Urslack and all members of the team, our fire prevention officer, and so many others who have stepped up to be part of a very robust and active fire service. So I know there's not that many dull moments, in the fire service right now as you continue to be engaged, not just in fire calls, but as you noted, medical distress calls, and unfortunately collisions from time to time. So we appreciate everything and want to express our gratitude for your efforts to evolve the service as required. And I know you're working hand in hand with the Deputy Chief as well, so that's great. Lots more to come, as they say, and I hope that the volunteer retention piece, in particular to the fire service, is able to resolve itself with time. We can hear there's lots of energy in the community, but I think you're looking for perhaps a certain age and stage of life, right, where perhaps the members of the fire service are best able to perform often very laborious, physically demanding duties from time to time. So I know it's not necessarily akin to other organizations in the community, but our hope is that you're able to sustain the service in the coming years with some amount of volunteers, if nothing else. So thank you very much. I think our task is to receive the report today, so I'll look for a mover and seconder, Councillor Strachan, and on this side, Deputy Mayor Barclay. Of course, we are receiving the report for information purposes only, and again, thank Chief Oakham for walking us through it. I'll call the question on that. All in favor? Good. That passes. And then moving along in the agenda, I think we're at the item of correspondence, and I do not believe there's any correspondence this evening. We have no other business. Notice of motion. Are you giving a notice of motion, Councillor Barclay? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At a subsequent council meeting, I'll be asking for council to direct staff, planning staff, to identify unnecessary hurdles to residential infill and intensification within the municipality's zoning standards, including but not limited to density, parking, and lot coverage, and to prepare a report with recommendations on improved zoning standards that are supportive of residential infill and intensification. Thank you.
Thank you. So obviously that's a notice of motion, so the actual motion will come in a couple of weeks is my understanding, and we'll have a chance to debate it there. Good. So then we'll just go to any questions from members of the media or our community this evening. Any questions? I know. Just 1 second. So I can repeat the question? If Terry Lynn, you have to come down, or I can repeat it if you say it loud enough, and I'll repeat it for the purposes of the public. Yep. Gotcha. Oh, good point. So the question is, are you actively engaging with high school students, some of whom, of course, may stick around and may represent a talented and energetic pool of potential volunteer firefighters in the years ahead? Chief Oakham.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Peckford, and thank you for the question from the public. An excellent question. So the fire service, if I can generalize, are very active in the community. They do participate in a lot of public education programs, not only in high schools, such as your question. We participate in workplaces as well as businesses, seniors. We also, in North Grenville, operate a co-op program. And when opportunity comes forth with young individuals who have interest in fire service, we do bring on an individual through a co-op program through the high schools to take them through a co-op program. So it is a service that is provided here in North Grenville as well. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on then, and we'll go to the close of meeting. That is, you received nothing, I should confirm with our clerk. Was there any questions received?
Nothing received.
Okay, excellent, thank you very much. So we'll go to our confirmation bylaw, and that is that bylaw 4223 to confirm proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on April 4th, 2023 be adopted and passed. I have to say, the logic of this bylaw still confounds me, but we do it every time. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder to confirm proceedings of council, which we've already voted on, I would like to add. But thank you, Councillors O'Sullivan and Deputy Mayor, for moving and seconding, and I'll call the vote. All in favor, please. Excellent. And now a motion to adjourn, which is non-debatable at 8:44 p.m. I will look for a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Strachan. Deputy Mayor Barclay, and I will call the vote. All in favor, please. Good. Our meeting is adjourned.